Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 638. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge. I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the sensei of the whatnot, the Duke of the Sultan of Strategery, the indestructible, bridge-defying, suspiciously knows way too much about how to plot and hide a murder, but he is known as the elder statesman of the podcast, Segulin.
How's it going, eh?
Jim, on this episode, we're going to talk about the crossover event, Trial of the Amazons, up to and including the recently released Wonder Girl special. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Jim, what is going on over at DCBService.com?
Well, DCBS is one-stop shopping for us. It's great deals on comic books, great deals on trades, on apparel, on statues, on action figures, all the wonderful stuff that we're looking for. So thank you, DCBS.
Over at InStockTrades.com, they always have some really cool new releases. And they have the Challenge of the Super Sons trade paperback at $16.99, regularly 42% off, only $9.85. They have the DC poster portfolio of Jim Lee trade paperback volume 2. $24.99, 42% off, only $14.49. And things like that are things I often miss, but I love them when they release them. So I'm excited when I get to check out their site and see all kinds of collected editions, both hardcover and softcover, that I'm missing. So I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. Also want to remind everyone about the exhibit that's going on right now in the UK. It's called Superheroes, Orphans and Origins, 125 Years in Comics. It's from April 1st to August 22nd, 2022. You can get there by going to foundlingmuseum.org.uk, and there's links in the show notes directly to the exhibit literature. So be sure to check this one out. It's a very cool exhibit. Jim, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on today's show. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's talk some comics.
Nice work, Atom. What are these characters up to?
So for this episode, we want to do something a little bit different. This Trial of the Amazons event's coming out, and 4 of the 7 parts have been out. This is something that you and I have been talking about since we heard about it, that we wanted to do and talk about on the show. We're both big Wonder Woman fans, and in particular, big fans of the Amazons in general. The Wonder Woman universe has really enjoyed a lot of comics and a lot of exploration of the larger world. Like, we've got an expansion with the different tribes, and really the fact that certain books have opened the doorway to greater exploration of tribes that we never even knew about. You know, with Wonder Girl having that one, that exploration. Nubia has its own little thing going on. The Wonder Woman proper book has its own thing going on. We've had Hippolyta appearing in Justice League. There's been a lot of exposure for what's going on in the Wonder Woman universe. And what I love is they haven't left out anybody. Like, we've got all the Wonder Girls. We got the current new Wonder Girl, but then we've got the previous Wonder Girl, and we've got Donna Troy a part of this. We've got Artemis a part of this. Like, all of the players that I would want being a part of this are here. Great exploration of Nubia, who I really grew to like in that future state, and getting to see her spotlighted in her own miniseries here, especially with being the queen. So let's talk in general about the global, like, feel of the Amazon world right now. So Hippolyta's left the Justice League now that Diana's back. With Hippolyta coming back, did you want to see Hippolyta reclaim the throne, or the route that they've gone where Nubia was going to stay on the throne? And it's the nice part about talking about this now is this has all happened before the event that we're going to talk about that happens in Trial of the Amazons. So it's been decided that Nubia was going to stay queen. What were your thoughts on that? Was that what you were looking? I'll reveal for myself, I loved that. Because I think Nubia is a great character who I think continues to need to be spotlighted. And I think what they're doing is really cool. Did you think they were going to go that route?
I actually did. I 100% love this idea, and this is how I thought they were going to play it out. I did not see Hippolyta coming back trying to reclaim the throne. Mm-hmm. You know, and I'll be honest, I thought she would have Well, I was thinking she would take on the role as the guardian of the gate.
Oh,
that was my head. Obviously that changed dramatically in this issue, but I was thinking she would come back and she would claim that role, and that's how she would not. There would be the whole fanfare of thinking like, no, I am taking the role, taking responsibility as the one-time queen who I messed up with this, and I was expecting some giant secret. The trial, I was thinking more of there was some giant hidden secret that Hippolyta hid from all of them. And her penance for hiding that was going to be, she was going to be the guardian of the gate. And that's what I was thinking this whole thing about trial of the Amazons is going to be. I thought the secret that she was hiding was going to get revealed, and she would be on trial. But granted, being Amazons, you don't do a courtroom trial. You do the other kind of trials. That's where I was thinking in my head this was kind of going to go.
Oh, I see. I thought it was totally the So that's funny. Yeah. And I'm not. This is not knocking you or even any criticism. I see how you, by the title, saw that one way. I guess my mind went to the contest all along, so I wasn't surprised by that. And I'm not. There's not a right or wrong to that. It's just so like expectations going in. I also knew, and we got to get spoilery here right now.
Yeah.
So I also knew there was a murder in this. I didn't know who was going to get murdered, but my assumption when I was going through the cast of characters, and they said it was a major murder. When I was going through, it was one of the not spoilers, but blurbs that I saw that there was a murder. They never revealed who. Once you know that that's on the table, you start speculating in your mind. And I deliberately never talked to you about this because I didn't know what you read and what you didn't, if you knew that there was going to be a murder in this or not. So I certainly didn't want to ruin the experience for you. Part of the reason why we make spoiler announcements before this is our goal is to talk about the events after they happen, not to ruin them for anybody. Because this is the fun part. Now it's happened. Did you know? And what did you think? Or did you think it was going to be somebody else? I thought it was going to be Hippolyta all along. Not because, first of all, I knew Diana was off the table because Diana's part of Justice League 75. We know what's coming for Diana. We just don't know what that's going to look like or how. So I thought if there was one person in this book that I thought was safe, it was Diana. I thought, like, they're not going to kill her 3 times, right? So we know what's coming for Diana, and we'll talk about her because I actually want to talk about her arc in this because I think it's unique to everybody else. I didn't think it was going to be Artemis. I didn't really think like Donna Troy or the previous Wonder Girl, Cassie. I didn't think it was going to be her. Certainly didn't think it was going to be the new Wonder Girl. I did not think Nubia. I thought Nubia was pretty safe. I thought like the only one was like Hippolyta had a great arc in Justice League. They did something really satisfying with her. If they're going to go for somebody, it was probably going to be Hippolyta. I did not think it was going to be any of the other Amazons that, even though we know their names and we know of them and their history, I didn't think they were big enough. I thought Hippolyta was the one that, like, that is a big one. With the way that everything's shaken out now, she's the one where you can make a mark with her. So I thought it was her. That was just my thought. Did you know there was going to be a murder, and were you speculating on who? Because I'm just curious to see. Yeah, I
had no idea there was going to be a murder. I'll be honest with you. And that, again, if I had known that would have dramatically changed my thought process. Because I wouldn't have gone into this thinking what I was thinking. I was going to think, okay, someone gets killed, and that's what they're talking the trial. So once again, I wouldn't have been thinking contest. I was thinking something happened, in the trial. And how does Amazons do a trial? Well, here's how they do it. And having it be Hippolyta was awesome, story wise. Bogus in that, I really dig the character, and I don't want her to go. I really wanted to see her and Nubia and, just their interaction. I always dig that kind of how Hippolyta throughout this issue, she's like, hey, yes, you're the queen. You're the queen. And I loved how she was giving Nubia that reverence. But Nubia, being cool as she is, it wasn't, she... One of the things I love about how Nubia's handling the crown, because, Heavy is the head who wears the crown. I love how she's handling, how she's dealing with that. She is the queen, and she is making the final call. But she's not like, hey, I know everything. She's not letting it go to her head. She's not being, there's no arrogance. There's no that, the general kind of like the smarminess that sometimes happens to a royalty. Yeah. Or someone who gets like a sudden promotion. You sometimes get that from people. 100%, not even a hint of that with her. And I love that they're not doing that with her. You can see this is, she is that same person that they knew all along. She's just now the queen. But she is, assuming the role. She is having that strength, and that's something that she got in her series, where she got that comfort with who she is, and how she handled Medusa was absolutely brilliant. I love that. Great combination of action, but also some intelligence. And you got to have that kind of balance, especially if you're filling the shoes of Hippolyta. Hey, so I'm absolutely 100% loving her in this. And that was the thing when I wanted more of that kind of, Hippolyta council, or as I said, I was thinking maybe she would be the guardian, because I think that would have been a really neat matchup. But then as I'm reading the issue, that's when I immediately realized, oh, okay, it's not about that. I started seeing the contest, started saying, oh, okay, I see they're going to have the trial for that. Oh, okay. So by the end of this issue, I knew exactly what was going on. I still didn't know about the murder until the end. It wasn't until like the last 2 pages, right before the big reveal, when I'm like, oh, wait a minute. She's not meeting her at the thing. Oh, God, are they going to kill her off? Flip the page, they killed her off. I'm like, oh, my God. So I had a complete shock that she was going to die. And I absolutely loved that. I thought that was absolutely wonderful.
I wish I read it the way you did. And my reason why, sometimes you see, I try to stay away from blurbs now as much as I can. And it's a catch-22 because, doing this show, I want to keep an eye on or, a pulse on what's coming up. So that way we can kind of do some diverse episodes, because I want to do some like lesser known books or some mini series or things like that. But I also want to be covering some of the big events like this. So you have to keep up on, hey, this is coming. Yeah. So I follow the blurbs a lot of times just for that. And the one I wish I didn't know, because you can't unread the fact that there's going to be a murder. So I deliberately never said anything to you about the murder, because I'm like, the odds of which one of the two of us read this is me. So as long as Jim hasn't read this, sometimes ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
So I deliberately didn't tell you, because why? It was interesting to read it knowing, because then it puts you in what we both do very well. And sometimes you're right, I'm right, neither of us is right. Speculation, which is what every fan does. When you know something, you're kind of like, okay, what's that going to shake out like? And it was really a lot of fun. Nubia is a character. I'm glad you mentioned the whole Medusa storyline, because I thought that was one of the coolest things. And if you haven't read the Nubia miniseries, or if you just jumped on issue number 6 to follow it in this crossover, I highly encourage you to read the Nubia miniseries. It's really, really good. What they did with her in the Medusa thing was something, I thought it was really fresh. Because Medusa, it usually never goes this way. and there's always that air of, I love that Medusa is somebody you look at cautiously now, even knowing what's going on with this, right? Is she going to turn? How legit is she in all of this? And I love that it feels natural to feel that way about Medusa. But Nubia's reasons for handling Medusa the way that she did, I couldn't agree with you more. I think the story encapsulated why she did what she did and made me believe in the character that much more. I think Nubia has become a favorite character of mine from her handling in this particular miniseries.
Yeah, I tell you, man, you think about the origin and the story, the backstory of Medusa. Mm-hmm. She really did nothing wrong. She was just this, beautiful woman who the gods Hera got jealous of, and so she cursed her. She didn't really do anything wrong. She just became this Gorgon. And then she turns people to stone, and it's that whole, you do monstrous things to people, they become a monster.
Right, right. Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more. And sometimes that's the tragedy of the gods' stories, right? The fact that they do these horrible things. I love that I mentioned my excitement over the fact that Wonder Woman's getting a video game. And for years, I've always said that the God of War game series is the reason why I think Wonder Woman should have a video game. You're nailing exactly why Wonder Woman's story could be so linked to God of War. God of War as a video game series touches on those elements that you just laid out there. the gods do sometimes some horrible things in their justice, right? In their way of branding somebody, or, you know, kind of controlling, you know, like you crossed us, so this is what you're going to be, or your beauty is an affront, or, you know, those type of things. And they do these tragic, horrible things. And I love that the Wonder Woman universe, as it's continued on, and I think this was further enhanced during the Perez run, have really focused on at times the Amazons' relationships with the gods, and how, yeah, they worship them and they believe in them. Not all of them are equal. And some of them are terrifying. Yep. And some of them are flat out dangerous and unwieldy and erratic. And I love that this has embraced that. The Medusa story's great. I can't wait I hope that continues to evolve, not only in this story, but if possible, beyond it. So Nubia's been great. The Medusa storyline's been great. Do you think Medusa's on the up and up?
Yes.
I do too.
I think
strangely,
Medusa's good.
Let's talk about Queen Faruka. Yeah. Who,
prime suspect to everybody, but I don't think she did it.
I
100% don't think she did it, because she is such a prime suspect. If anything, I'll be honest with you, I'm thinking her co-queen, and Hippolyta's sister, I keep wanting to call her Atlantis, and it's not. It's Atalanta.
Isn't that the character that was in the two Wonder Woman movies?
Yeah. That's Hippolyta's sister.
Right. So it's the same. It's the same character, I guess. Is what I'm
same
saying.
Character. And
Don't you think it's Doom's Door that did this, though? Like, whatever that thing is that came out of Doom's Door? Because there's this idea that there's something that's come out of Doom's Door, and it was like that black, almost like that.
Well,
black.
again, yeah, 100% could be that.
So I think whoever did it, this isn't me disputing any of your like conjecture as far as who it might be. I think it might be more than one person that's involved in some form of conspiracy because of Doom's Door. I think. This is my take on it. So for me, Faruka's not off the table, or at least her her group isn't off the table. But I don't think if they are involved at all, it's because of manipulation, not because of evil intention.
Right.
I think whoever has done it, I don't know that I believe that person was of a sound mind. So that's added a whole twist, and actually opens the doorway to it being a lot of potential suspects.
Well, and again, for me, I don't know if, again, I would have absolutely zero issue if it is a Doom's Door, corruption, mind control, whatnot. I got no problem with that. That'd be a great story way to do it. But again, the sister, Etla is, for me, my prime suspect. Looking at all the cast of characters, all the names that have been thrown out as the people, that's who I'm, right now putting my finger on.
Got it.
Doom's Door definitely would dramatically change who it could be. And I think that would be interesting if you take somebody who you 100% would not think would never remotely do anything like that. It'd be kind of neat. I'm trying to, so you think about it, just looking at it logically, wine poison. So who gave her the wine? That's the question. If we can figure out, see who that is.
Is it who gave her the wine or who helped prepare it? Because Here's the thing, the person who gave the wine could actually be completely innocent.
Yeah.
In that scenario. So who behind the scenes would have had access to it? I think one person, because they've already been accused, it's off the table. I think Artemis is in the clear. I don't think it's Artemis at all.
Oh, no.
I think Cassie already accused Artemis, and I think that was meant for us as readers to go, okay, we can check her off the list as not being a suspect.
And again, without any mental illness, Artemis wouldn't use poison.
I agree.
100% would not use poison. And that's where you got to look at who would use poison. It's, some people call poison the coward's death. But the other thing, you look at poison is also, one, a lover's death, and two, is also looked at as a non-painful way. So again, family have been known to poison other family members because it's not poisonous. They fall asleep and that's it. And same thing like, with you think back to Romeo and Juliet with the two lovers.
So could it have been Hippolyta's lover?
That was my other suspect. Now, here's the thing. She is meeting Hippolyta in the garden, the rose, the trees and all that stuff. So, So if she is the poisoner, she's 100% really playing it to the point where even like that Hippolyta kind of like surprised that she's not there. So I don't think it's her. The sister is my main goal, is my prime suspect right now. I don't want it to be.
Based on what?
Based on your first suspect's always family.
Yeah,
I guess you got a murder. Your first suspect is family.
Yeah, see, I'm strangely not thinking her at all. Which here's the thing. You know who knows? Cassie knows, right? That was where we left things out. Yeah, so we just don't know who she's figured out at this point. I'm not, and here's I guess I should say, I don't think it's the sister, but I don't have. If you were to ask me, well, what's your evidence that it's not the sister? I don't have any.
Yeah, I don't have any solid evidence.
So I'm going to say my disputing you has as much backing behind it as you're supporting it. So, I mean, what does that mean? But I think it's fun to speculate on this. Truthfully, I didn't think it was her lover until you started going down the path that you did. And it's funny, you're more convincing me that she may be a suspect, and I wasn't really even thinking of her till this conversation, because she could get close. I will say this, if you were to ask me what my prime suspect is, it's Doom's Doorway. I do not think the murderer did this of their own accord. I think the murderer did this with something that Doom's Doorway manipulated within them. And I think what's happened with Medusa and Medusa's arc is critical to this. I think what we've seen, the changes that we've seen in Medusa, I think are going to play heavily into the changes of the murderer, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
The murderer is not the same person that they were before whatever's happened to them in this arc. Something has happened to the murderer or murderers for this to have taken place. That's my conjecture on this. And do I have a lot of solid evidences? No, it's things I'm picking up in the story. Like the release from Doom's Doorway, what happened with the murdering at Doom's Doorway, with the Guardians that are there. I think Doom's Doorway is really critical to what's happening here. And I feel like whoever the murderer is, and I could be wrong on this, the murderer could be somebody who is causing what's happening. Like allowing or manipulating in a certain way events so that Doom's Doorway does open up for this. But my feeling is that this is from the Doom's Doorway outward, not from our side in to Doom's Doorway. This is my speculation right now. So I'm trying to give my mindset. I think Doom's Doorway is manipulating this situation. I think it's a pivotal piece to this. At the end, I think we're going to have a much greater understanding as far as why that door needs to remain shut and why it needs guardians.
Well, and I like the comment on when, I can't remember if it was in Trial 1 or Nubia 6, where they're talking about Doom's Door, and they're explaining it to the other Guardian. The Themyscirian is explaining it to the other two Guardians, how, the gods entrusted the Amazons to guard this, and the one's like, sounds like they just got cheap labor out of you guys. I do love that kind of that notion that we have these three tribes of the Amazons, and not all of them know the history. Not all of them know what's going on at Themyscira. And the fact that the other two tribes are like, hey, we're getting cheated here. You're living here on Paradise Island, immortal. Why can't we share the wealth a little bit? And just that notion and that concept, does create a really neat whodunit kind of mindset, and really does. And I've said multiple times how I love the Green Lantern Corps. I don't really have a favorite Lantern. Mm-hmm. Gun to head, it's always John Stewart, just because he's super cool. But I really don't have a single favorite Lantern. Of the Amazons, I can 100% say I love the Amazon concept, the Amazon story, but I do have a favorite. Her name is Wonder Woman. But running close second is the new Wonder Girl Yara. I think she is just a great character. And that's something I want to see her shine in this series. And again, Nubia is another really close second of, again, I really love her as queen, so I want the Amazons to keep, Themyscira to keep the title, so she's still queen. But this is something that this story is playing out beautifully with just all these tribes coming together.
Boy, and one area where I'm going to just completely echo you on this one, Yara, strangely right now, this is not, I love Diana, and I love Diana stories. I will continue always following Diana stories. My interest right now is far more in Yara than Diana. And it sounds like I'm knocking the character. I adore Diana. I adore Wonder Woman as a concept. I'm actually going to say I give a slight edge to Yara right now just because I think this character is new and fresh and interesting. I didn't expect that. Because sometimes these new characters are created and they're fun. Like, I remember when Cassie first came on the scene. I loved Cassie when she first came on the scene. And I felt like she added something to the book. But she wasn't edging out Diana. It wasn't until my feelings for Cassie growing stronger wasn't really until the Jeff Johns run on Teen Titans, where her relationship with Superboy was developing. And I thought, wow, this character's like really coming into her own. And then there was her friendship and / relationship with Robin. I mean, there was things that was being explored with this character where she was becoming more three-dimensional than she ever had been. Yara out of the gate's been three-dimensional and unique and really well realized. The character concept behind the scenes was really well developed. Whereas Donna Troy, separating her from the Donna Troy, I was Wonder Girl early on. It was Wolfman and Perez as Titans that really kicked her to the next level for me. So there's specific points where these characters take it. Yara's the first new Amazon creation that for me, I latched onto right out of the gate. And that's not diminishing or knocking down any of them. I'll even say that Artemis took me a while with that old contest storyline before I really got into her. Admittedly, during that storyline, I got into Artemis pretty quick. So she's an interesting sort of duck that way. Yara, it was issue 1 of her book. It was like, wow, I dig this character.
Interesting thing. Here's the thing about Artemis with me and my connection to her. To me, she's kind of like, the Kyle Rayner. Kyle is a great character, and I absolutely, every time I've read a Kyle story, I was like, man, he's a great Green Lantern. I love him, but I don't whenever people say, hey, who's your favorite Lantern? He never enters the mix in my head for some reason. I don't know why. Mm-hmm. It's always, the big debate always goes through Hal versus John and all that stuff, but in reality, Kyle could very easily be slipped in there. Artemis is one of that same kind of characters with me in the Amazons, where every time I read her, I'm like, she is awesome. I really dig her. But when I'm sitting there thinking favorites, for some reason, I don't go to her automatically. I don't know why. I don't. But she's one of those just that rock solid characters that throughout this, I love how she's being played through this. And then you said earlier how Cassie initially accused her. I was like, oh, no, that's the wrong person to accuse. You should have said, hey, I know it's not you. You want in. And she should have gone to Artemis and had Artemis in on the investigation with her. And they could have done that buddy cop thing that we saw in the Wonder Girl series and all that, with those two working together, which they had a great dynamic. But, again, absolutely love that character.
It's funny you mentioned Kyle Rayner. I think one of the advantages that Kyle had over Artemis, but then I think also they had a similar path in certain ways. Kyle had a much longer run as Green Lantern than Artemis had. Artemis had a very short run as Wonder Woman. And she's had story arcs after that, but hasn't really enjoyed an ongoing exploration of her with the same kind of depth as Kyle has. Kyle's one of those characters that they did the Parallax story with Hal Jordan, and then Kyle was the man. I mean, it was, and ground floor. For some people, Kyle Rayner is kind of their Wally West, where they started with Kyle Rayner, and Kyle Rayner's their Lantern because they started with Kyle Rayner. Then it was kind of, they brought back Hal and didn't know what to do with Kyle. And he for a while there drifted into the background until they got those core books going and we started to see more of Kyle being brought back to the forefront again. But Kyle's a great character. I love Kyle. Where I'm saying there's a similarity, it's the fact that, very similar to Artemis, he had this period where he was kind of in limbo. Artemis is, I think, had a much longer period where she's in, like, you'll get these writers who remember, like, listen, Artemis is a great character to bring into this. And they bring her in and, like this story, bring her in properly. But she is kind of the odd duck, the fish out of water. Whereas when you see Donna and Cassie appear on the scene, even with Wonder Girl, like in the whole Escadidas, I'm pronouncing them, whatever the name of that tribe is, who I think I want to know how to pronounce it properly because I think they're way cool when they show up on Escadidas. Am I saying it?
Here's how I've been pronouncing it. Mm-hmm. One, when I read it, I just say Esque, but I think the full pronunciation is Escadidas. Yeah, Escce, it's like Cedas.
That's what I just said.
Yeah. Okay, so we're saying the same thing. Hey,
I think is it Escadidas? I think it's Escadidas.
Yes. I'm agreeing with you. Don't give me grief, man. I'm backing you on this. Okay?
No, I thought you were like going to come out. I'm joking. I am teasing you. But I thought oh, Jim's got the Spanish pronunciation. Because here's the thing. I'll admit, I don't know. I've got no digging my heels and this is the correct pronunciation. I want to know the correct pronunciation because I think they're very cool. I'm using my bad Spanish because I'm well aware of the fact that I do know some Spanish, but I know a lot less than I actually know. So I'm trying to use that and spell it out or pronounce it out properly. And I love the characters. It's a group that I really enjoy. So it's frustrating for me that I'm like, I think this is what it is. I kind of want to know. But I love that they're pulling right from that culture. I love that they feel different than the Bana. How do you pronounce that one?
I just say Bana.
Yeah.
We'll
say the Bana. All right, we'll go with that. Actually, I don't disagree with you on that. So the Bana group is one that we've seen for a lot more of Wonder Woman lore. They've been around for a while. The idea that there's more groups out there is something that I really enjoy Wonder Woman exploring and expanding on. The idea that there's these Amazons that have been disenfranchised and have left out for various reasons in the world, and they're coming back now as part of this trial to make their stand, to make themselves known, to be a part of, really to put their group on the map, and to basically say to the tribe, the Amazons proper, that hey, we're here too. We should be given the same acknowledgement that you are. We should be counted as part of the sisterhood, and we should have a voice here too. It's not just your laws, your voice, and if we don't follow along with it, we're on the out. And that's the part where I'm like, wow, this is really a great and interesting story. I love the way that this is playing out. I didn't expect this to be as much of a focus on it. And it's added onto the playing field a lot of motivation. And I think it's almost like a bait and switch, a shell game. Let's throw in your face the reason why every one of these tribes would have motivation to do this. But then what if there's some other force that's manipulating?
Yep.
That's why I can't help but wonder if, even if there is one killer, if it's not as simple as that. There's multiple pieces of manipulation going on here. And I can't wait to see how this plays out. I'm really enjoying that aspect of this story. And if I'm wrong on it, I don't care.
Right.
The story has me gripped, and that's where it's really a success. DC we've got this looming Dark Crisis, and it's funny, I think about Dark Crisis just because I'm excited, and I'm kind of preparing. I'm reading, you and I were talking before recording, I'm reading the Justice League Incarnate series to kind of wrap up that and get prepared for Dark Crisis. My mind and eyes are on getting ready for that event. But in the meantime, we've got this huge event going on in Superman's world. We got a huge event in Wonder Woman's. We got an event that we're going to talk about next week going on in Batman's world. There's a lot going on in DC right now. And there's stuff going on in Flash with, Flash being part of War for Earth 3. We've got significant events going on in Green Lantern, which is a book I'm really enjoying.
Oh God, yeah. See, they're doing some really cool stuff going on here. You know, and again, they're taking all these families and organizations and groupings and hitting something big.
Yeah.
You know, and again, that's one of the things I really love about this trial series is that we're covering through 4 titles interconnected. And I'll be honest with you, it's funny that I'm saying that because I'm one of those guys who I remember when we first started with doing this all those years ago, a story like this would have confused me. I would have been like, okay, when are we doing that? Like, reading order, and that would have thrown me off. I needed the nice, clean numbers, read that kind of thing, and it's following it used to give me problems, but for me now, I'm like, I love the fact that they're intertying all these things together. I love that we're getting this kind of story that it's not just the Wonder Woman book. It's the Trial, it's the Nubia, it's Wonder Girl. All these books are interconnected, and it's a one giant Amazon universe, and it's one of the things that I'm absolutely loving about this story. And again, they're giving all of these characters plenty of time to say, to show, to put them in the light so they can really shine.
Do you use internet searches like now, or like kind of organically? Like when you get a story like this, do you do like Trial of the Amazon's checklist or reading order or something like that? Because I do. I'm saying I do. And the reason why I'm referencing that is, I answer the question first, and I'll explain why.
Okay, I didn't initially for this, and I wish I had, because I initially read Nubia 6, which was the funeral, and I'm like, wait. Hippolyta died? What? Hold on. And then I looked like, oh, crap, this is part 2 of the Trial. Okay, so I'm like, oh, okay.
So it kind of throws out the window a little bit of what I was saying, because you were talking about how like this used to confuse me and all that. Right. You actually did what I was starting to do. And I do this more organically now, and I think this is the difference between when we started 16 years ago and now. It's so easy now to plop onto Google and just go, Trial the Amazon reading checklist and kind of go in order. I tend to do that, especially when I'm finding like, am I behind, on something that I maybe should have read for this? Because like we're doing next week that Shadow War Alpha, and the whole Shadow War, like what we'll do to current where Shadow War's at. But before even talking about the possibility would we do that next week, I did a Google search of like what books are a part of that, just to get kind of an idea of will we have enough of substance that we can have a conversation around it. I didn't do that when we first started doing this. Not the way that I do now. 16 years later, it's funny how much has changed and how easy it is just to plop onto the, it's not like my aunt, the Google machine, and search for, get the checklists and reading orders and things like that, which is nice now. It's nice to be able to pull that stuff up pretty quickly and follow along with what reading order should I go in with this. The thing that I like nowadays, it's also to find out like what stuff you should, like if you want to go really crazy. Here's the arcs and miniseries that you should read leading up to the event. Like if you're like, I'd really like to read the background stuff too. Okay, here's what you want to read. I like that you can do that now so easily. It's so easy now to pull that stuff up. And that's a huge difference. So that way you feel like you're part of the story.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about Diana a little bit, because here's what I really love about this story. It embraces the fact that Diana was dead and she's back. And I mean, that happened recently. Diana's back, yes, but a lot has happened. Like, they moved on without her. And there is a infrastructure and direction for all of these people that used to look to her. It's funny, we talk about Hippolyta being queen. Well, Hippolyta was queen. Hippolyta went on Justice League. So there's a new leadership structure with the Amazons. And for even these subgroups, none of them look to her. They look to their own person, their queen, or in the case of Yara's group, Yara, and the leadership of that group. They're all looking to their respective leaders. Diana's coming in now, and she's very much a symbol, but she's almost treated like she's got a certain reverence. In some cases, there's a resentment of her, but she's not really treated as a part of any one group, which plays heavily into her ability to be able to present herself as she's going to in this series, where she's like, I'm gonna come in and be a part of this contest because at my core, I've been denying it, but I really believe I should be that symbol. And I'm going to become a part of the contest as a representative of all of our sisters, of all of our groups, kind of bringing everybody together and be a part of this whole piece because I feel that I should. Instead of avoiding what I feel what my role should be. But I like that throughout this entire thing, even in her interactions with Nubia, it is like this person who is visiting their world versus being a part of it because of the fact that she's been gone so long. I don't know if you got that same vibe, but I thought it was very real to the events that happened to her, where it's different than other presentations where when she was alive and having a lot more interactions with the Amazon world, that she was treated more like she lived there. Right. Somebody who's come home again seemingly after a long time and almost unexpectedly.
Yeah, and it's one of the neat things about her in this story has been, again, just her interactions with the different people. I loved her and Nubia having that great dialogue. Yep. And just that, her, again, following her mother's leading to Nubia is the queen, and she's following her words. But again, it's funny, I agree with Diana. Line them up, do the magic lasso, let's get it on. And I love the fact that she's just that blunt, but then everybody else is like, hey, what are you talking about? I loved how Donna Troy was like, wait, you'll question me as well? What the heck's going on here? And in fact, again, it's a really cool notion that, again, it's combination of grief, anger, the fact that Diana really wanted to spend time with her mother, but was never able to actually spend that time with her. You think back to the first two issues. The first issue before passed away, Diana kept trying to spend time with Mom, and something came up. Yep. Faruka pulled her away sometimes. Something got pulled away here, and she never really had to have a really good moments with her. And now her mom's gone, and it's done. And I love the fact that how this is emotionally affecting Diana to the point where she's like, hey, everyone's guilty unless I prove your innocence. Kind of going into a Batman sort of mode. And that kind of made me chuckle that she's got that, we got to prove everyone. You're guilty unless I prove you innocent kind of mindset. But it completely fit her anger, fit what's going on in her, fit everything about her. But then by the end of the story, by the end of Wonder Woman 785, you see Diana, start to return. You see the person who isn't about, she's not just about punching in the face. There's more to her. She is that queen. She is that princess. She is that ambassador. She's the god of peace who was formerly the god of war. All those really beautiful complications that make Diana such a great character, we see that starting to come back again. And, and in the end, she declares herself as a champion of all Amazons. And I absolutely loved how this issue ended and how her story arc in this went a full distance from the outsider coming back where everyone's like, hey, is that Wonder Woman? That's one. Oh, I thought she was dead. And just, all those kind of weird things, just that uncomfortableness to the grieving daughter, to the I am a champion. I have to step up. I've got to do my role to save my sisters. And I love that about her.
One of the things she has, I'm going to say survivor's guilt, and please know that I'm oversimplifying when I say that, and I'm not trying to insult people who've genuinely gone through survivor's guilt. I'm trying to find the right label to put on it. But what's happened is her mother's died, and there's so much that, first of all, she wanted to be there to protect her. She wanted to have the moments with her that she wished she would have had had she known that was the only time that she had left with her. There's so much of that scenario. She also feels like at this point, as the daughter, the heir apparent, that it's her responsibility to bring her mother's killer to justice. So that's a lot of responsibility that's there. In some ways, it becomes a distraction then of looking at the events around her and saying, what should my real role be here? What should my real representation of our tribe be? What I'm representing not just me now, but my mother. And in that process, I need to be sure that I'm doing her right and making, what she stood for mean something. I loved that aspect of this because it was so human, so real. Doesn't take away of anything from who Diana is. We talk about all the time how when we see Bruce Wayne, the real Bruce Wayne, not the one that is like the pretend kind of participant in Wayne Industries and all that kind of thing. We're talking about the guy that is both Batman and Bruce Wayne. Clark Kent, when we actually see Superman, whether he's in or out of costume, have moments with Lois and with his son and with the parents. When you would get to see those moments, you get to see the humanity of them and you connect with them in a very real, very genuine way that's important for us to do as readers to keep them. It's great to have them be these larger than life characters, and it's sometimes where you want to look up to them and see them that way because that's where they inspire you to be better. But they sometimes, if they're written to that way without any form of human identification, they become so unrelatable that it's your loyalty to following them month in, month out becomes very difficult. These stories where they bring Diana to a level where, okay, I get her. I can kind of relate to her. I understand her background, her motivations, what she's going through, her humanity, the fact that she has a heart, that these kind of things do affect her. It's important to have those moments. They don't take away from anything I just said about them being these larger-than-life characters. If anything, it makes them more larger than life when we see them juggle what we do. And you can relate to them and then kind of go, and they do this? And I think this is a great example of how you do it with Diana.
Oh, yeah. And here's the thing, dude. I 100% would say survivor's guilt is an accurate diagnosis of Diana right now. Because survivor's guilt, it kind of goes into multiple kind of categories. You've got the ones where two people are in an accident, one person survives. The person who survives, that's survivor's guilt. You've got another version of it where you weren't in the car because of blank. You missed you woke up late, you missed something. There's some reason you weren't actually in the accident, but you could have been. Like the people who weren't on the planes during 9/11. They missed the connecting flight. They missed the taxi. Didn't get them to the airport in time. Whatever. Those people, that's their version of survivor's guilt. The third type of survivor's guilt you have are within the family and the loved ones of the people who didn't, who weren't there to prevent. They weren't around. There's nothing they could have done, but they still didn't do it. Like the families of anybody 9/11. They have a survivor's guilt going on, even though, they had no reason to stop their loved one from going into the building. They have no reason to slow down or prevent someone from getting on a plane or any of that. They still have that guilt that my loved one is dead. I should have known. I should have done something, even though it's completely not, there's nothing they could have done. But they still have that level of guilt. And Diana 100% has survivor's guilt over her mother.
Yeah.
And you see that in her initial flare-up reaction, and just everything. And then when she goes into the temple to meditate and pray, and she's visited by that ghost, and I did air quotes around ghost because I'm not 100% certain who or what that was. But it is... where she starts getting clarity and she starts working through her grief. And that's when we see Diana, the hero, step up again to protect her sisters, seeing there's something bigger going on here. We've got option A, we've got option B, we've got option C. No, let's add option D for Diana. And I love that, how they did that. Again, it's something that was really cool.
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree more. This is, that's been the fun part of this series. Has been seeing how that continues. I like your added the option D. I'm like, yeah, that's great. Yeah. Queen Faruka and her, the interaction there was such a really powerful sequence because, there's a part of me that's like, I think there's a manipulation that's gone on of Faruka here, but I think Faruka's idea that the Bana is a tribe that has been in many ways, shape, or form wronged by Diana's people in how they've been ignored. There's a part where I feel that they're right in what they feel. There's a part where I feel they're wrong and they're being unfair. And it's interesting to have that duality where, like, I see it both ways. And I feel like, Diana's looking for healing in this whole process is pretty critical. Because she's like, I think there's some misunderstandings there on both sides that can be met. This third tribe being added into the mix doesn't help.
No. Well, and again, it's with the Bana, I really do wonder. And actually, with Bana and SK, I don't see why they can't all live on Themyscira.
Right.
Themyscira is a big enough island, I would assume, that all three could live together. And even when the Bana, they had that whole story arc with the Bana. I don't know why when they initially first introduced the tribe, introduced them that they didn't just stay on Themyscira. They chose to leave. They chose to actually go to another. They could have come back, and I don't understand, why they couldn't do that. And it is one of those things where it's, it is difficult it would be difficult for all of them to interwork because, again, who's in charge? Whose laws? Whose rituals? Whose traditions? But in the end, that's kind of what life is. You can't always have your way. You've got to respect other people's opinions. You got to respect other people's beliefs. You got to find a way to work together. And that's, kind of what this story for me, I'm hoping we're going to get. In the end, we're not going to have 3 tribes. We're going to have one nation of Amazons, and they'll all live together in Themyscira, and they'll all be, it'll be one group, and they'll respect each other's wishes, each other's beliefs, and just kind of like open up because Yara really hates the Greek gods flat out, and I love in her story she flat out says how she really hates the Greek gods, So you're gonna get that, and just like the Bana, they're not worshiping the Greek gods; they're the Amazons who don't worship the gods. And I think that is going to be a neat mix as to how you blend a group that's very religious towards the Greek gods with 2 groups who are not. Now, the SK have their own god system and their own gods that they believe in. The Bana are basically, for all, I don't want to say atheists because I think some of them do have, their religious beliefs, but as a group as a whole, they don't have this is who we pray to. So it's going to be kind of neat seeing all these entities interact and become one.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, why did Donna Troy? Because Donna Troy is a really cool character, but again, she's one that I don't have heavy knowledge on. I don't have heavy, oh my God, Donna's amazing kind of mindset. When I read good stories with her, I'm like, that's cool. Some of the Titan stuff I've read. I've read some of the older Titan stuff when she was the Titans, when she was in the Teen Titans and whatnot. So I know who she is, but I don't have a comfort in understanding who she is, I don't know the whatnot behind Donna Troy. And that's the thing where when she steps up to be the Bana's, Banner's champion, that kind of threw me for a loop. That's something I didn't see coming. I was expecting Artemis to take the role, but seeing when they announced Donna Troy, I was like, okay, I didn't see that one coming, So why? Do you have any theories on that?
Well, Donna's kind of an interesting bag, and one thing that's been an issue with Donna over the years has been the fact that Donna's story has not been very clean. There's been Donna Troy. There's been Donna Troy as Wonder Girl. There's been Donna Troy as Troya. There's been multiple stories labeled "Who is Donna Troy?" that have explained her complicated background and have shifted her relationship with the Amazons, if I'm making any sense. As far as she's this to this person, she's that to that person. This is what her background is. So her loyalty to the Amazons as a whole is something that's very much there. But it was funny how I was surprised, but I wasn't, if I'm making any sense. Where because Donna is the character that you're describing, actually, in your own way, Donna's the one character you could do. Cassie wouldn't have worked. Donna does. because of the fact that Donna's background is one of those where it's like, this just adds to Donna's continued confusing background. I also started to wonder, too, how much of that's manipulation. Who approached Donna? How did they approach Donna? I think there's things we haven't seen yet that explains that. Because you're right, there's a certain mystery, like, why did Donna go with that? Why did Donna accept that? What's she trying to do? And it seemed strange that she would be the one to go with them and not the Escuela. You know, I mean, why, or Esqucia, you know, I mean, why not? I'm butchering their name too. SK, yeah, the SK. I mean, but
and I'm doing the limiting because I don't want to insult it. I don't. I'm you and me both. We have pronunciation issues, especially me.
Right.
So that's why I'm doing Bana instead of the Bana my doll, and SK Sida. You know.
So to answer your question, I think my feeling is that Donna sees the element of injustice where it's like, okay, the Bana need to have a champion here for them as a group, so that way they really are a genuine voice. Yara's doing it for the SK. Diana's doing it for Amazons as a whole, which nobody saw coming, right?
Right.
And we've got Philippus doing it for the Themyscirans. So you've got really strong representation now for all the groups, respectable representation for all of the groups. And you've got Hippolyta's daughter that's a part of it. Talk about a contest, a real trial that's going to be there. There's manipulation to it. And Donna being put in there was deliberately being done as a political move to hamper Diana, right? By the Bana putting forth Donna, by Donna being the chess piece that's moved into play. There's a manipulative element that's going on there. It's very, very interesting to see how this is shaking out. Donna being a piece, I think some of it is Donna's choice. You know, I mean, obviously some of it's Donna's choice because Donna's the one that's made that choice. I think Donna's doing it for noble reasons, where she believes that the Bana deserves to have a voice.
Yeah, yeah, and again, I'm agreeing with you, and I do think, you know, because you think about it, she says, "I pledged my sword to your cause of equality."
Right.
And that kind of does fit Donna. But part of me is wondering, as soon as I saw that scene, as soon as I read that page, I'm looking at it. You know the first thought that did pop in my head, don't you?
What?
She killed Hippolyta.
Well, if she did, she was manipulated. I don't think they'd go with Donna on that one. I'm not saying I'm 100% sold on that.
Yeah, and again, I have no evidence, nothing other than just that, you know, my sensei senses are tingling. You know, I'm like, oh.
And I get why.
I wonder.
I get why. So it's one of those where I don't have a lot backing. If I can, you know, I don't have a lot backing as far as why I feel that way. I don't think it's Donna. Now, that goes back to what I said earlier, though. You know, one of the things I did say, and I do stand behind it, I don't think the whole picture is going to be a singleton person. I think there's going to be evidence of manipulation that incorporates a number of people. I do think Donna's a part of that, but I don't know if she is a victim where what she's trying to do is noble, but she's being manipulated by the situation. You know, her beliefs are being used against her, if that makes any sense. That's where this story's gripping. Like, I can't wait for issue 786 of Wonder Woman to continue the story. Yeah. Like, what is going on there? What is driving, you know, the motivations? It's a really, really cool component of all of this. I do like that the champions all have, like, these themed outfits, if that makes any sense, that are themed to this trial. Donna's is a version of her current outfit, and same thing with Wonder Woman's, but yet they have this black and gold theme. Actually, Donna almost looks like the fish out of the water out of the whole group. When I mean, in the sense that when you see that final page of them where you see Philippus and Yara and Diana, they clearly are, you know, wearing these similar themed outfits, and Donna's stars almost look out of place. But she's got that, like, scarf that kind of makes her part of the whole motif. I actually really like the idea that they're all, like, from the standpoint of saying, are these equal champions? Yeah, from the visual look, they're being treated like that.
Yeah, and again, it's with Philippus being the champion. 100% agree with the selection. Mm-hmm. She's tough and she is 100% cool. But part of me I honestly was thinking that Nubia was going to declare herself as the champion. You think back to how she was always, the guardian. I was like wondering, like, could Nubia do that? I don't know. And I'm like, because think about it, this is a champion, but it's not only a champion, it's also the guardian of the gate, of the Doom's Gate.
She's in a tricky position, though. Think about it. Because the way this would shake out, if she's the queen of the Amazons,
right?
She's not just the queen of Themyscira. In the mind of her people, she should be the queen of all of the Amazons.
Yeah.
So even though there is a queen of the Banna and a queen of the Eske, they really all should be deferring to her. It's a tricky component where, like, could Hippolyta have entered the contest? No, she shouldn't. So I think Nubia runs into the same problem now because she's queen. She really can't. If I'm making any sense at all.
No, I agree with you. And again, it's one of those things where that was a notion that was entering my head when, because you think back to, Wonder Woman, the issue Wonder Woman, she's in the garden and she's sitting there and she's just coming up to terms who will take the oath to protect all her protect her sisters,
Agreed.
All her sisters. And it was one of those, when I'm reading that, I was just thinking, like, is she going to declare herself? And it was just a notion that popped in my head. And when they didn't do that, I wasn't disappointed because she couldn't do it. Philippus, again, is a great selection for her. Again, being her connection with Hippolyta, her connection with the current captain of the guard, and just everything that she is.
Sure.
She's a really good choice on the matter. But it is kind of curious to see how they do. Again, I was like, I'm curious to see how this thing plays out because I don't see Nubia losing the title because this isn't just for the Guardian of the Gate. This is for everything. Whoever's champion wins is the queen of all Amazons. So this is the true trial.
Yeah.
Where it's everything. It's the true contest. This isn't just one job. It's the whole marvel. So in my head, I can't see them having Themyscira lose. So that would mean either Diana or Philippus wins.
Sure.
But they're putting enough intrigue in this that it's not 100%. I'm like, I don't know. This is kind of cool.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more.
Especially if the Banna is responsible for the death of Hippolyta. You think about it. Mm-hmm. If Donna Troy wins. Banna, the co-queens become the queen of the Amazons. Identified that one of them is responsible for Hippolyta's death. The other one steps down and says, because of this, we can't take this role. And, it goes back to Nubia.
Right.
So, which again, leads me to Atlan.
I don't think it can lead to Nubia because she's queen. I think there's a conflict of how can you can't be queen and be doing that. How do you guard? Right. So I don't think you can. So I think that's the problem. The catch-22 for Nubia is it can't be her.
Right. I know. I
think that's one where there is no doorway for Nubia to be the one because of her current position. Right. I think, but here's the piece where I'm going to contradict myself a little bit because I agree with you. I think what you're talking about is something different. Does Nubia want to? And I think she does, and I think you feel it in the writing, and I think that's something that they did really well. So it's funny, I get why you're asking the question because I think there's some validity to what you're saying, and I think it's just good writing. Where you've got a character that has had that role before and feels a responsibility to it, and it comes across the page. So I think it's why, and I'm glad you're addressing it because it's funny, I'm listening to everything you're saying, and I'm nodding, and I'm like, okay, I don't agree. I know why she can't be a part of this, and I'm really adamant about that, and clearly in my response. But I want to go back to what you're saying and go, here's why I think you bringing this up is really intuitive. you're picking up on, I think, something that is just really good writing. This character does have a responsibility to in her mind and in her heart because it's been her role. So I think I'm like nodding along going, okay, I'm sort of saying no, but yet saying I get you and I get where you're coming from in this because I think you're right to bring it up, if that makes any sense. I hope I'm making sense in what I'm saying because I actually do agree with you a great deal on this one.
No, I get you. Yeah, and again, it's one of those things where I was like, as I'm reading it, again, when I flip the page, and Philip, this makes perfect sense, and you run through all the scenarios, but again, it's one of those weird things with how cool they're making the character, how deep they're pulling us in, how much we're learning who these people are.
Yep.
And you can start thinking, how are they thinking? What's going through their head? And it's absolutely wonderful. And it's funny. One of the things that, also kind of caught me off guard, and I'm wondering if it's going to be addressed. Diana interrupted the presentation of Donna Troy as the champion. Before Banna actually says, present our champion, Donna, it doesn't get the full name out, and that's when Diana comes in. Is Donna Troy going to be a little miffed at Diana for interrupting, for coming in and stealing the spotlight, stealing her thunder? How will the Banna take it? Are they going to be extra insulted because of what Diana did? I think that's going to be, again, there's so many different levels of intrigue that's going to play out in this story that I'm really 100% in on this thing.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a interesting sort of story where one of the things I love about it is with all the players that are on the playing field, they've really given this a lot of breathing room to delve into their characters. This is a very character-driven piece where it's not just the main players. There are groups of people and some of our supporting cast is getting a much larger role. Even the sister of Hippolyta, which is one we don't want to ignore because she's a suspect on your list, right?
Yep.
It's an interesting sort of scenario. And I think the Wonder Girl issue is probably one of my favorite as far as the exploration of the potential cast of suspects. Because we see Cassie exploring and trying to figure out who they are. It also, and I don't want to gloss over this, it showed us a great moment between Yara Flor and Hippolyta that I thought we really needed to see. Because Yara is a character that's become very important to me, but so far in this story has been sort of a background character, if that makes any sense. Except, we knew that she would be the champion of her group. That was kind of obvious, that's where that would go.
Oh, yeah.
But what is her connection to the larger story? And seeing her moments with Hippolyta and Hippolyta talking about the mother of Yara and having that moment, she was a fierce and passionate woman, headstrong at times, but there wasn't a warrior on earth you would rather have fighting by your side. She would be most proud of the woman you have become. Hippolyta taking that moment, we talk about the compassion of Diana, right? It's good at times to see some of that came from Mom, and I was glad to see Hippolyta have that moment with Yara. I thought it was really well written.
Oh, God, yeah. And again, it does show how, Diana's got that coolness to her, but her mother does as well. And that's something that, she is just a great character, and that's one of the things that, when you've got these people who are just really good, just that true goodness to them. Clark has those moments where he has that Boy Scout style to him where you're just like, he's just a good guy.
Yep.
I want to be his friend. I want to help him. Hippolyta has those moments. And it's one of those, it's the, and I said that earlier about Nubia, where, she's a queen, but she's not pomp and circumstance. She's not, I can't dare approach her. Hippolyta can kind of give off that air. And I loved how Yara had that. And then, Hippolyta's like, no, it's cool. Just relax. It's all right. And I love just, again, Yara's, her perspective on life has been something really neat. And especially, in her series, and then in her special, on the trial, where we're seeing life in her eyes, life from her perspective, just life of the SK, what it's like to be them, the aftermath after the battle on Mount Olympus, her hatred for the Greek gods, just her love of her people. It was a really neat exploration. It's something that, again, I'm so happy they're telling the story this way, in that, it's not just one-sided. It's not just Banna. It's not just Themyscira. It's the SK, but it's even a mixture of the three coming together. It's, really neat. And again, it's one of those things where, I keep, sometimes, they're based on coloring and this and that, and I can hear music sometimes along with it. And because this is Brazil, they've got these brilliant, vibrant colors. And even when they first, in issue number 1, when they first came in, they kind of like popped on the scene and they're like, hey, we're here. Like, you and what army? Me and this army. Bam, and they showed up, and it was like just that. I kind of was hearing the dun 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 Brazil, kind of just that energy, that high energy, coming out as they hit the scene. And again, they even when the coloring on the book, it's got that same pop and magic to it. I absolutely love these people.
I do too. It was funny, you were referencing before your love for the Green Lantern Corps and how it relates to this kind of experience. I think that is something that's been interesting about this. Is I think you're right. It's branched out, and it's so unique and so different to what I'm loving about the Aquaman exploration of Atlantis and that whole concept. Green Lantern, the Batman universe, the Superman universe, because Superman universe gets really kind of cool when it starts exploring Krypton and some of the history with that, and Supergirl and her history. This sense of history that you get out of Wonder Woman, and a unique history because you're dealing with not only these tribes but the gods and which gods they're loyal to, and how that drives even the motivation or the thought process of each individual tribe. It's something that's really, really cool and super unique to Wonder Woman books. You can only get here. I've really, really enjoyed the growing focus. Because for a while there, Wonder Woman was the book where the character where you're like, is she ever going to get another book? And what's that other book going to be like? I never would have in a million years thought we'd be getting the kind of explorations of the Amazon's world that we're getting now. Where it's not just like isolated to just a mini-series here, a mini-series there. We're getting the Wonder Girl ongoing, which is a completely new character that opens up a whole brand new world. We've gotten this Nubia series. What is Wonder Woman going to look like? What does the events of Justice League that are coming up mean for Wonder Woman as a whole? There's so much going on here that really has me wondering about the future and what this looks like, and excited for it. There's a lot of characters now that you take Diana, and I want to be careful about this. I love Diana and want to keep reading Diana. So let me put that out there and set that in stone and solid. When they killed her this past time around and we got to continue following her journey, even, as dead Wonder Woman, I loved that. So my preference is always to follow my favorite characters, even when they do these evolutions and changes. I like the idea of progression where we get to see them grow older and these new characters opening up doorways to them exploring life at a different time frame. So that's more of what I want to see with progression. I don't want to drop those characters and not read about them. I just want to read about how they deal with that progression. I'm really curious with Justice League 75 what the DC universe that we're going to be reading is going to be like. And I think it's really dangerous right now to kind of overly assume that this means that these characters are off the table. I think things are going to... Dark Crisis is coming. It's going to shake things up. But I think... I'm really at the point where I'm like, in Joshua Williamson, I trust with where that goes. But these writers, I would be very, very unfair to the writers that are currently handling the various Amazon books. I trust them. boy, are they delivering some great stories. And I want them to continue thriving and enhancing and expanding this world that they're exploring, because, boy, you and a lot more of our conversation than I even expected had a lot more to do with the feelings, the emotions, and the motivations of the characters in this story than the actual death of Hippolyta, when you think about it. And that's great, because that means we're starting to really care about these characters as individuals, and I absolutely love that.
And I just got a notion that popped in my head, and before I say it, I'm going to say 100% I don't think this is the case. Okay? But a notion that just did pop in my head, what if Hippolyta faked her death? And that wasn't poison, but a giant sedative. And when they did the funeral pyre, she somehow slips out and was not actually in the funeral pyre.
This isn't arguing with you, but why?
Okay, so think about it. On all three of the nations, okay, the Themyscira, the Eske, and Banna each had an attack through Doom's Door. The Themyscirans had Medusa. The Banna had that giant griffin thing. Excuse me. And Eske had that giant boar-looking creature that also plagued and was killing the rainforest. So each one of them have an escapee from Doom's Door coming to get them. Mm-hmm. So, Hippolyta has to figure out a way to identify the problem. What's the best way to actually investigate without the bad guy knowing you're looking into them? Be dead. Right now, behind the scenes, Hippolyta is doing the work to try to figure out what's going on. Again, I don't think it's the case.
No, that notion
just popped in my head because I was thinking about all three tribes, and how each of them are having these prophecies of doom, and each one of them are seeing these things. I'm like, what if they're planning something else? What if there's, because it's probably, I'm 99.999% certain that's not the case.
Sure.
But there is that little nagging in the back of my head. What if this is a giant swerve and Hippolyta is not dead?
I still don't see the why. I mean, that's not disputing what you said. I think that would require a lot of foreknowledge from Hippolyta, which she's not dumb. I think nobody saw coming what was happening, and I think it takes away from that. I don't know. Here's the thing. There would be a story that would need to be told there. I'm with you. I don't think it's a thing. I like the idea because I love Hippolyta, so the idea that would be the big swerve, I just don't see that. I see the swerve being who the actual killer is.
Well, but also maybe that's what Cassie figures out. She retraces her steps, goes back to the beginning, see if there's something she missed, and that's when she finds it. Because that's the thing. She's like, oh, it was... and that's the thing we see in Wonder Girl, the Wonder Girl issue, where we don't see her actually say who it is, but we see Cassie figure it out. What if she figures that out?
Oh no, I think she found out who the killer was. I'm really convinced that it was. She knows who the killer is.
Yeah, I don't know. And again,
I'm completely convinced. I don't think she found out. Oh, she's been alive all along. I don't think that's what it was is. I think she knows who the killer is. I retraced my steps back to the beginning to see if there was something I missed, and that is when I found it. Oh, it was. She found the clue. I think she knows. I actually would be sorely disappointed if we come back and go, and I realized that she never died at all, which means there really is no killer. I don't think that's what she discovered at all. I think she discovered who the killer is. Now, your little scenario where Hippolyta was still alive because I don't think that's what I don't think that's what Cassie discovered. No, I mean, no. In my heart, I know that's Cassie's. Cassie knows who the killer is.
Yeah. Well, again, yeah, and I'm curious to see who it is. I want to know. As I said, I have my suspect, but I do like her not actually being of her own mind that she would kill her own sister. But she right now is my prime suspect.
My suspect right now is my top suspect might be her Hippolyta's own lover. But I think she was manipulated by the situation. I think she took on the role of, or she wants to take on the role of Death's Door's guardian to try to appease, the fact that Hippolyta.
The guilt. Yeah.
I think she was manipulated. I don't think she did it willingly, if that makes any sense. But, again, this is all speculation, and it's fun speculation. This is a great story, a great, great story. DC right now is hitting it out of the park, I think, with just these events that are going on. And what I mean is, they may not be for everybody. And what I mean is, as readership, people who listen to this podcast, everybody's a little bit different in what they like. I love the larger universe as a whole, so when you've got multiple events going on like this, and they're so different, it's fun to read them because each one gives me motivation to keep following a particular line. It's fun to follow what's going on in Superman right now and know that what I'm going to get in Wonder Woman is vastly different. Batman's got its own exploration. Then there's books like Aquaman that are out there that are doing their own thing with that particular universe. It's funny, they're ramping up all these books right now, and we've got something coming in just a couple of weeks that is going to be a game changer that I don't know what it means yet. And that part excites me.
Oh, God, yeah. And again, it's the death of the Justice League. What does that mean? Who are we getting rid of? And again, how does that affect Trial of the Amazons? How does
Wait, out of the group that's involved in this, what we do know from the storyline that's coming is there's one survivor.
Yeah. There's
one person that comes back to tell the tale. And we know it's not the big three.
Yeah, so and it's that is something that does make me wonder because the contest has to continue until the contest is done.
Well, this
so
takes
Diana
place,
can't leave the trial to go with the Justice League. So
this takes place before
has to happen after this.
Right. I think they said there's a certain amount of time for the books, and that's happened before. There's a certain amount of time for the books to catch up to the events. That's happened with many characters, over the years where when they've had these big events, the story arc that was going on in other books isn't concurrent.
Right.
It's a few months behind events. Then Dark Crisis will come up, and we'll see what that changes. I wonder if some of these are deliberately designed to lead to Dark Crisis, meaning that the current storylines in these books will end in time for Dark Crisis versus in time for Justice League 75.
I'm assuming that that's when all this stuff has to get caught up by Dark Crisis.
I think. We'll see. I've never felt like the entire universe has to be operating at that April in the DC universe means that every book is happening in April.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I'm curious to see if we're going to get our good editor's notes and stuff like that, or, notations on there, or if they're just, because again, if we've got a couple weeks, because Wonder Woman 786 is part of the trial.
Right.
But that's going to come out right before Justice League 75, right?
I think so, but I don't think
so. There's going to be a little bit of lag time there, but I'm assuming they'll just do an editor's note takes place before Justice League 75.
Well, I think it'll be pretty obvious
pretty obvious.
She's dead in one and alive in the other. I don't know that I need an editor's note to tell me that.
Some people
I don't know. I'm gonna.
Well, you never know how they deal with the dead in comic books.
I'm fine if they do an editor's note. I'm not knocking the idea of putting an editor's note in there, but I think that one's. I don't need somebody to tell me that, hey, this character that died in this book that's alive in this one, this took place before she died in that book.
Well, I'm a little slow sometimes. I admit that.
The only place where editor's notes do pay off in that particular scenario is, let's admit, some people will read the collected edition later. It's sometimes helpful to know, timeline-wise, where did this occur. There are, in case in point, some of these story arcs that are coming up do have some opportunity for some pre-reading. If you want to read, the book we're going to do next week, or the crossover we're going to do next week, involves, if you want to, some reading of Deathstroke Inc. and of Robin. Kind of know what's going on with those characters. I think Deathstroke Inc. in particular, if you want to know what's been going on with those characters leading up to this event. Oh, Robin, with where this is going, I think Robin does play a factor into that as well, the Robin book. It's interesting.
We are Crystal Men from Mercury. We have no quarrel with you. I
would like to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388 4434 or drnorge on Skype. We love having you part of our show. RagingBullets@gmail.com is our email address if you prefer to contact us that way. RagingBullets.com is our show website. You can find out about the new releases of episodes. We also pump that out to Twitter and to our Facebook fan page. We are proud to be part of an amazing Facebook group community that has been active for years, and actually there's still 2 different versions of it running. I do want to thank Jeremy and the whole crew over there. We have an immensely awesome group of people over there that will post news, feedback, thoughts about what's going on. Sometimes we post our episodes, information like speculation or questions that we had about characters and if they appeared again. Camelot 3000, I just had a great dialogue going on that one where there were some things I didn't realize that the characters appeared again. And it was great to get that information added on. So it's a great supplement to the podcast. So I just want to thank everyone over there that participates. You keep me up to date with information about things that are upcoming, but also with additional information about things that we've talked about on the podcast. And it's that kind of interactivity is something that I really enjoy over in the Facebook group. So thank you for everyone that participates. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Jim, what is going on over at DCBService.com?
One-stop shopping for all your geek needs. T-shirts, apparel, statues, action figures, comics, trades, you name it, they've got it at a great deal. Thank you, DCBS.
Over at InStockTrades.com, just want to remind everyone once again, check out their new releases, because that's always where I go to find out about books that I've missed. Challenge of the Super Sons trade paperback is now available at $16.99 regularly, 42% off, only $9.85. The DC easy enough for me to say. The DC Poster Portfolio of Jim Lee Trade Paperback Volume 2. $24.99 regularly, 42% off, only $14.49. If you're a fan of artwork and you haven't checked out any of these poster portfolios, they're really, really cool. Thank you, DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for supporting our show. I also want to remind everyone about the About Us section of the show website. If you're looking to connect with us on social media, gaming platforms, that's the way to find out. I tend to update that regularly as our participation in various platforms change. So please feel free to check that out if you'd like to connect with us that way. Our next episode, Jim, we're going to be back and talk about the Shadow War crossover that's currently happening in Batman, Deathstroke Inc., and Robin. So we will see you next week.
Bye.
All right, you guys. Are you ready to sing your song?
I'd say we are. Yeah, let's sing it now.
Okay, this should be fun. Now get ready for your cue. Okay, Sean?
Okay.
Okay, Jim? Jim? Jim!
Okay. Raging Bullets time is here. We talk about what we hold dear. Comic books and TV shows, superheroes and their clothes, Justice League and so much more. I just love Green Lantern Corps. We talk about the books we've read with spoilers straight ahead.
Okay, fellas, get ready. That was very good, Sean.
Naturally.
Jim, you're a little flat there, so be careful. Jim? Jim? Jim!
Okay. Justice League and so much more. I still love Green Lantern Corps. DC Comics are what we know. The Raging Bullet Show. DC Comics are what we know. The Raging Bullet Show.
Excellent job, guys.
Let's sing it again. Yeah, let's sing it again.
No, that's enough. Let's not push it.
Push it. What is that? Yeah, what are you talking about?
No, I didn't mean anything by that.
I think
Jim,
it's right
Jim,
there.
how long do you want the song to go?
Look, it's our production.